All right, everyone, welcome in. Bryce Gelman here today. Have the absolute pleasure to chop it up with one of my favorite all-time guests, and just one of my all-time favorite sports talk personalities, John Jastremski of the Ringers New York podcast. You get that wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, formerly of WFN, we're going to be talking about the Yankees, the absolute dumpster fire that is that organization, and some positive news with the New York Knicks. Without further ado, let's bring him on. So here's JJ. What's going on, JJ?
Bryce, it's good to be back. We've survived the week. Yankees-Orioles this weekend. Hide the women and children. What's up, man?
Dude, I had to bring you on for this. I mean, of course, I have you on all the time. You're my guy. But this is such a – I mean, it's like how many times do we have to witness this? How many times do we have to live through this? It's a year-by-year basis at this point where the Yankees implode. You have to hear Aaron Boone say it's right in front of us. And then you try not to lose your absolute you-know-what. So let's just start with this. I want to get your reaction to that. When you heard that the other day with Aaron Boone saying it's right in front of us, what was your reaction to that?
I don't know where to begin. Do I chuckle? Do I want to throw a remote through a wall? I mean, honestly, it's not surprising, Bryce, because it's the same shtick. It's the same repeat nonsense from the manager over and over again. I'll tell you what bothered me more than anything is when guys like Grisham on 4th of July or Torres or Volpe, and sometimes the hustle thing can get blown out of proportion, but there are other times where stuff like that will cost you a ball game. And Friday against the Red Sox, I think it goes without saying, you can make the argument it cost them a ball game. And, you'll hear within the Yankees, oh, but you don't know how Aaron Boone is between closed doors. You don't know how he is as far as handling the players. You're not there. You're not in the clubhouse. Well, I'm not. Neither are you. But here's what I do know, Bryce. The same crap happens again and again and again. So clearly, whatever that message is between closed doors is not hitting home. And it is clearly, falling on deaf ears from a manager who doesn't hold his players accountable. So when you add all of that up, yeah, it seems like the Yankees are running a country club-like atmosphere. I don't know how anybody could argue otherwise. And listen, I've screamed about this manager so much that I feel like I'm kind of like beaten down by it, to be perfectly honest with you, because, Listen, 2021, the Yankees, outside of a 13-game winning streak, were a terrible baseball team. If they didn't have that 13-game winning streak, they would have missed the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, they made the playoffs and lost in humiliating and embarrassing fashion to the Red Sox. He was extended after that particular season. Last year, the Yankees went 82-80 and had their worst season since 1992, and they did not make any changes. So, I could scream about it. You could scream about it. It's one of those instances where I actually legitimately have to see the Yankees make a change for me to believe they're going to make a change. Does that make sense?
It does, and I subscribe to the same belief as you. I mean, how many more times can we sit on this show for me, for you, on your podcast and say the exact same stuff? It's like I brought this up the other day. Like what the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. We kind of are under that same mantra now, where we are constantly talking about expecting different results. Nothing's going to change. What is the point of us losing some hairs here by discussing the current situation that's going on with the Yankees? And you brought up something with what's been said about, you don't understand what Aaron Boone is behind closed doors and all that stuff. If he's such a good players manager, why don't these guys perform for him? Why are they all under 700 OPS? They struggle to hit. The bottom of the lineup has been objectively terrible for the last 3 years. So if that's his MO, he's so great at that. Why are there only two guys in the lineup actually hitting right now besides Ben Rice?
Totally fair. And I think part of it is obviously due to the flawed constructed nature of the team. That obviously takes somewhat of weight, and obviously you have to take that somewhat into account. But at the same time, Bryce, they should not be this bad offensively. I'm sorry. They shouldn't be. I don't know what's happened to a guy like Anthony Volpe. Alex Verdugo is incredibly streaky, but you put him in the leadoff spot. You've gotten nothing out of Gleyber Torres. How about Gleyber Torres' approach at the plate getting worse and worse and worse with each passing year? That to me is a reflection of your player development. That to me is a reflection of your manager, your GM, and your organization. Like all of these baby bombers that they had come up years ago, the only one that's come home to roost is Aaron Judge. Okay. Then you think about other guys that looked far better when they came up as minor leaguers and progressively got worse. I could give you the list. Sanchez, Torres, Frazier, right? Like maybe these guys weren't as good as we thought they were. I think there's some of that, but I also think they have not been cultivated and nourished maybe the way that they should be.
That's a good point. It really is. When you look at all those guys, you can mention another guy, Miguel Andujar. Like we can go down the list. Almost every single one of these guys somehow was better in their first year than they were after that. Gleyber Torres, he had a bounce back year last year, whatever you want to say, the near 800 OPS, whatever. Okay, cool. Contract year this year. And the guy has completely fallen flat on his face time and time again. We see him struggle in the batter's box. Of course, the demeanor issues, him not running out ground balls. Like this is all stuff that, hitting aside, like that's something that just needs to be addressed from an organizational standpoint. That can't ever happen. And Trent Grisham, you bring him in, and you brought that up on July 4th. You bring him in as a defensive option. You think, okay, he'll barely play. He's the fourth, fifth outfielder. He's been getting a lot of run in the outfield because of the injuries and whatever and whatnot. And then you see him go out there and make a boneheaded decision like that. Like it's like you bring in a guy like that for defense, but then he's not playing defense. He doesn't look like he cares in the outfield. It's just like, how much more of this can we take before something's actually done? And another thing I need to talk about today here, and this is probably the most frustrating point out of all of this, is how terrible Carlos Rodon has been in his last 4 or 5 starts. And I bring up a lot of advanced metrics. I can tell you that his average exit velo off the fastball is 94 miles per hour. And in 2022, of course, his last year with the Giants before the Yankees brought him in, they signed him to the big contract, 89.9. What have you seen with Carlos Rodon this year? We could put all of this together last 2 years. What have you seen from Carlos Rodon again this year?
He's interesting. I thought he figured it out in April and May. Maybe not to the level that Yankee fans thought he was going to be in 2022, Bryce, but he looked like he had put 2023 behind him. He was on his way to the All-Star team. He was giving the Yankees competitive starts, and then he got absolutely roped by the Red Sox. And it sure seems like his mental confidence is completely shattered. And that's what you worry about with certain guys, not having the right makeup to be able to handle New York. And I'll give this to Rodon. After the games, he's been very accountable this year. He's not made excuses. He said, I got to be better. He's handling it the right way. But you do have to wonder, now that he's been broken and he looks like the guy we saw 2 years ago, which was a non-competitive starter for the Yankees. And I don't need to hear the Yankees waxing poetic when he gives up 4 runs in the first inning and then settles down. Oh, but he hung in. No. You get paid $27 million a year to do a little bit better than hang in there and actually give your team a chance to win, not bamboozle them in the first inning. He's got to figure it out fast. The problem they're running into, they paid him. He is not going anywhere. You are stuck with that Carlos Rodon contract, but you have to have serious doubts and questions about whether or not he can handle New York. No doubt.
I hate to make the comparison, but are we really witnessing Sonny Gray 2.0? I know it's a different story with the Yankees trading for Gray and this situation, obviously, the Yankees signing Carlos Rodon. But is this just a case of this guy can't handle New York?
Could be. And I want to give Sonny Gray a pass because I think the Yankees completely ruined Sonny Gray. The way he pitched. A lot of people look at Sonny Gray and they say, oh, mentally he wasn't fit to handle New York. He couldn't handle Gary Sanchez. They had him pitch a completely different way than Sonny Gray has pitched his entire career. And if you look, Bryce, look at the numbers. Sonny Gray in St. Louis this year, Sonny Gray in Minnesota, Sonny Gray in Cincinnati, Sonny Gray in Oakland. He's pitched great. Yankees, 2018, worst season of his career because they tried to have him do something that he was not capable of doing, and he did not have success. I don't think it's that with Rodon. I don't think the Yankees are necessarily ruining him. I think it's the idea of, hey, the stuff is there. Go and execute. He was early in the year. He's not now. But that's one of the storylines that has kind of sabotaged this team, in addition to their lineup, in addition to the lack of accountability from their manager. Their starting rotation in the first 2 months of the year, without Garrett Cole, was as good as anybody's in baseball. June on, it's been as bad as anybody's in baseball. Rodon, Stroman, who last year, remember, great in the first half with the Cubs, fell off a cliff, second half of the year. He's not been great. Heel, you got to wonder about the innings, and you got to wonder if Garrett Cole's 100% right. So that rotation that looked like a strength, it's now a question.
It's just unbelievable how much could change in a 1 month span. Like a month ago, this exact same time, we were looking at this organization as, are they going to finally be able to get over the hump? Are they finally going to be able to get to the World Series finally for the first time in now 15 seasons and actually win it and actually be competitive and not have the status quo be, oh, well, we made the playoffs. How great is that? So what I struggle to sit with right now is just the total fall off from the entire roster. How is it possible that guys 1 through 9 and your entire pitching staff at the exact same time fall apart? What happened in that game against the Red Sox, June 15th, where every one of these guys is now underperforming?
It's a great question. I wish I had an answer for you, but the Yankee collapse or the Yankee swoon, whatever you want to call it, has been a common theme basically each of the last 5 years, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now you've seen it again this year, and that's unacceptable. I will say this. The Yankees are lucky they're not judged on the regular season. But that all being said, Bryce, I don't care if you win a division or not. From what you've seen 3.5 months into the year, if you're a Yankee fan who's asking yourself the hard, honest, truthful question, why on God's green earth would you think this team is going to be any different? I don't care if they have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in the middle of the order. I don't care. Why is this going to be the Yankee team that breaks through? I can't envision it right now. Can you?
No. But a month ago, everyone was saying, no, I say everything. I mean, everyone, but I was definitely one of those
you felt the
people.
vibes. Listen, you felt
Exactly.
the vibes. You had Soto, you had Judge. You're thinking, hey, Garrett Cole's coming back. This rotation could get even better. They're going to add to the team. And I do think, they're going to add to the team. But the problem with the idea of adding to the team is you also need some of the guys who are currently here to wake the hell up. Like, you could add to the team. If Carlos Rodon and Marcus Stroman continue to stink, how do you overcome that? If Anthony Volpe continues to stink, and to me, he's one of the biggest culprits in the lineup, Bryce, to why they're in the position that they're in.
Yeah.
First few months of the year, or first few weeks of the year, this guy looked like he was going to be a star. He had a great start with the average. He was hitting home runs. He was stealing bases. They moved him to the top of the order. And everyone's like, oh, you should have never moved him. I disagree with that. That's nonsense. You know what? You're a player. You have a job to do. I don't care if you're hitting first. I don't care if you're hitting sixth. I don't care if you're hitting seventh. Do the job. Anthony Volpe falling off a cliff, to me, has nothing to do with where he's batting in the order, in my opinion. To me, that's about the player not executing and doing the job that he's supposed to do. But they were counting on him to be a big pillar this year. And since April, he's been awful. There's no getting around that.
JJ, it would be one thing if 1 or 2 of these guys were struggling. But every single player in the lineup besides Judge and Soto at the exact same time,
now Judge is struggling, which is going to happen.
Inevitably, he's a human being. He's going to fall back down to the mean, and his mean is still much better than any player in baseball history that we've seen since Barry Bonds. So awesome, great, but you have to expect reasonably, of course, with the rotation too. I don't think anyone expected that to be sustainable whatsoever. Garrett Cole coming back was going to average that out, hopefully, and bring it back down to a point where I think people expected it was supposed to be at the start of the year, but they've fallen apart, as you said. You bring back Garrett Cole. He doesn't look 100%. It's just like you can't look at any part of this roster without looking at another part and being like, well, how both of these guys, how are they both at the exact same time? It seems like there's one guy in the lineup, and his stats are now inflated because of a 3-home run game that is actually produced besides Judge and Soto, and that's Ben Rice. Like, what do you see from this lineup going forward? Do you think that Ben Rice is going to be the savior in the 4 spot?
I'm not willing to go that far. I think he's had good at bats. I want to see more. I think he's had a really good approach at the plate. But, for me to say, definitively, Bryce, I'm too hurt by Greg Bird. You know what I mean, dude? I'm too, not only Greg Bird, I'm hurt by so many other Yankee prospects that have come up and have gotten off to great starts and have seen careers fizzle. I mean, that's from Sanchez, who we mentioned, to Bird, to Andujar, to Frazier, to Torres. I mean, that's been a common theme for the Yankees over the last 7-8 years. Guys that get off to these monstrous starts. A few years ago, who would have had Gleyber Torres going down the road that he has gone down? Or when Gary Sanchez came up, the way his career has kind of just completely fizzled out, first with the Yankees and then with other teams. So it's tough to have extended faith and confidence that these guys are going to be able to go and do it. But listen, so far so good. I have to say I liked what I've seen, but you need more than that. And that's why people ask, what should the Yankees do with the trade deadline? You know what I want more than anything? I want athletes. Bryce, everyone steals bases now. Everybody. It's now easier than ever before. They have changed the rules. For the Yankees to go 3 weeks without stealing a base, that's unacceptable. That should not be. That can't happen. So, when I'm thinking about guys they can add to the team, can I get a guy or two that is athletic and dynamic that can, help me out in that particular way? That, to me, has got to be a must.
So you brought it up, and this is going to be my next question for you. Who is out there? I know the Yankees are interested in Jazz Chisholm. That's the new rumor. Is he affecting the status quo with his organization? I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. I get that. Listen, I think
who else is out there besides him?
Rengifo, is that somebody that you like? Angels, utility. Listen, these are the names, though. That's the thing. People like to fantasize. They're like, what if they could get Vlad Guerrero Jr.? I'm like, yeah, another power all or nothing hitter. No, thank you. Why? And why is Toronto going to go and help the Yankees out by giving you Vlad Guerrero Jr.? So, that's where people live in fantasy land. It's going to take some real creativity. But I don't think there is a magic elixir at the trade deadline that's going to all of a sudden solve the Yankees. I think it's the idea of bringing in somebody like that and other guys stepping up that kind of gets you back to where you need to be. And here's the thing I'd say with the Yankees, Bryce. It might get worse for them before it gets better, because if you look at the July schedule, it's not easy. After the All-Star break, it's Tampa, who always gives them a hard time, the Mets, who are playing really well for 2, at Boston, who's giving the Yankees fits, and then they close July with 3 at Philadelphia. That is a brutal month of July. But if you look at August, and this is why people ask, the Yankees going to miss the playoffs. I'm like, no, they're not, because they have Chicago, and they have Colorado, and they have Detroit, and they have Toronto. The Angels, they have a lot of cupcakes on the schedule that they should be able to get fat enough, I think, to still be in the postseason.
How do you feel about this rotation? Do you think we just discussed some position players the Yankees could go out and acquire? How do you feel about them, let's say, going out and trying to acquire a Jack Flaherty from Detroit?
He's a weird guy. He was so good when he came up with the Cardinals. Flamed out there, has had a little bit of a renaissance. He's the sort of buyer beware guy that I see you bring him in, and then he just reverts back to the guy he's been. Is he that much better than the Stromans of the world? Crochet's the guy that everybody loves, but here's the problem with Crochet. As dominant as he has been, it's the same situation as Luis Hill. It's the most amount of innings he's thrown in a professional career. You're buying him from an all-time high, and you go and bring him in. Are you transitioning Crochet to be a bullpen arm? Am I giving up top prospects for a guy who's going to end up being a 7th or an 8th inning reliever for me this year? Because I think ultimately Crochet, fair or unfair, he's headed in that direction. They're not going to let him throw 220 innings when he's probably thrown, I think 110 is his high for his entire career. So that's the problem with guys like that. I like Crochet's arm. It's tremendous. He's been one of the best pitchers in the American League. Kopech from the White Sox gives him swing and miss. Like, they'll add to the ball. My gut is, Bryce, they don't add a starter. They'll add a couple of bullpen arms because you can find them, and they'll get some guys with swing and miss. And that's one element that this front office has done a pretty good job of. I think they'll find a guy or two. And it remains to be seen what they can do as far as their offense and who exactly they can go and bring in.
But ultimately, the question will be, will it be enough? And I think both of us are kind of on the same page here in saying that until something drastic changes with this organization, they're not going to see the type of success that I think they're expecting. I think the fans have expected for the last 15 years. So what is next for this organization? Like, let me ask you this first. What are your predictions for the rest of this year? And then we'll get into that conversation quickly right after.
Predictions, I think they'll make the playoffs. I have to see who their first round opponent is. If they get a team out of the Central, I'm going to like their chances. If they end up getting the Astros or the Red Sox, I'm not going to like their chances, especially the Astros, until I see otherwise. And I honestly think, Bryce, it will end up going down a road that's been the norm for the Yankees. I think it's make the playoffs, flame out in the playoffs, same old, same old. Until I see otherwise, how can you convince me that it's going to be different? And as far as what's next, yeah, tough questions. See, people talk about the Yankees, like spending money. It's not that. Development. They're not developing players. They signed Carlos Rodon, gave him a ton of money. They made the move for Juan Soto. It's been great. This is not about the Yankees. This is about the Yankees. The good teams in the sport lose players and develop new ones. Look at the Astros. They lose George Springer. In comes Kyle Tucker. They lose Carlos Correa. Boom, Jeremy Pena becomes their shortstop. Like, they have their core, don't get me wrong, but like they have supplemented it and they have added to it with young guys. The Dodgers. I know the Dodgers got Ohtani and Freeman and Betts, yes, but they've done a good job developing as well. You have to be able to develop. And I think it's the biggest problem with the Yankees right now is that their minor league system has given them very, very little. I mean, the fact that we're talking about Volpe is this chosen one hasn't exactly played like it. So that to me is where this front office, this whole organization has really missed the boat the last few years, more than anything.
We've discussed here today these guys coming out from the minors, coming up and playing extremely well, but then falling flat on their faces. So do you think it's more of an issue with the development per se in the minors, or do you think it's more of what happens when they get to the majors?
I think it's got to be all of the above, right? I don't think you could just pinpoint like Aaron Boone and say it's all Aaron Boone's fault. I'm sure he's a part of the problem, but I can't say he's the only part of the problem. So I don't know what's going on in the Yankee minor league development levels. I don't know what they're preaching. I don't know what's being rewarded and not. And the other thing you got to take into account, Bryce, I think a lot of these Yankee prospects get overinflated and overhyped because of the Yankees. I feel like this happens way too often. And I don't know, like Spencer Jones, for example, I have no idea what he's going to be as a player. I know some people love him. I know some people think he's maybe a little too swing and miss. But that's what happens in Yankee land. That prospect, if they're like a B prospect, I feel like they get graded up to an A because they're a Yankee prospect. I feel like this happens all the time.
JJ, let's end this show here on a positive note, which is with the New York Knicks. My New York Knicks, my favorite sports franchise in the world, somehow has positioned themselves for the first time, and I say this, I don't think a lot of people will agree with this. I think this is the best Knicks team since 1973. I think they're better, much better on paper.
Better than the 93 or the 94 team.
Look at those teams on paper. You think Anthony Mason would get any playing time on this team? I mean, maybe he's the backup 4, 9. I understand it's a different.
It's a totally different era of basketball.
Who are their wings? Who are their wings on that team? They weren't good. They didn't have any wings.
Listen, I love Jalen Brunson. Love him. I need to see him have a Ewing sustained period of dominance. Remember, you had the big fella working. He's been great.
2 years.
I love the guy.
And
Favorite Knicks since Ewing.
I don't know.
I think they're really listen. I think they're really, really good. I think they're really good. I love the team. I love the way it's built. I got to see them. Can they get to a conference final first before I'm saying it's the best team since 1973? Is that fair or is that unfair?
That's fair. That is fair. I just think what we're looking at on paper with Bridges and OG in the same on one wing and one on the other is the most enticing, I think, duo. And that's not even including the fact that they're the third and fourth best players on this team. They're the third and fourth best players. You still have Brunson and Randall, and you got the 2 guys off the bench, the 3 guys off the bench who are very, very valuable, especially considering the fact that those 2 guys would start on at least 25 teams in the NBA, Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo. McBride would be the 6th man on most of those teams as well. I just look at this team, and it screams, based off what we know with the culture, what we know from these guys and what success they've had in the past together at Villanova, they scream NBA championship. And I think, JJ, the window is the next 5 years. Where do you see this Knicks team going in the immediate future?
Yeah, I think that's the idea now. It's making that next step as an organization. I think this is the team. I think the only tweak you could see down the road is what they have to decide on Julius Randle, whose contract is going to be coming up. And I think this year's playoffs, more than anything, Bryce, will be the referendum on whether or not they're going to keep Julius or not. Brunson, we know, is getting extended. It's a matter of, is he getting the extension now or is he going to wait and get the extra money? I know you, myself, and all the other Knicks fans out there hope he gets this done sooner rather than later. We'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, dude, like the Celtics to me are the team to beat until you see otherwise. We also know that the league now, the way it's set up, it's really hard to repeat. It just doesn't happen. The Nuggets ran into this. The Milwaukee ran into this. It's difficult to do. That works in the Knicks' advantage. And the disease of me, which is real. And who knows, maybe you're seeing a little bit of it with Jaylen Brown not getting named to the Olympic team. You know, like that's little subplots and storylines like that you take into account. The West is going to be really good. Really, really good. I think OKC is loaded. I think they're the best team in the West. I think Denver with Jokic and Murray, you can't disrespect them. Minnesota's really good. Dallas, even though I don't love their team outside of the big 2, they had Klay Thompson. He's going to get open shots, but can he guard me or you at this point in his career? I don't know.
Probably not.
The point being is this. The Knicks next year are on a list of about 6 teams that could go and win a title. They can. Will they? That remains to be seen. Like, and let's put it this way. Would I pick the Knicks right now to win the championship next season? Probably not. I wouldn't. I would probably take, if I had to give you an NBA champion right now, I think my pick would either be Minnesota or Oklahoma City. That would be
for me, it's OKC. I don't see a team that's a better, all around than OKC. They've got a squad that's 10 deep now. 10 guys that can come in and you could slot them in wherever and they're going to be effective on a court. And it's I don't know. I think OKC.
The East is going to be loaded too. Let me tell you, like, I know Milwaukee, Doc Rivers, some of their role players, it's still a team that has Giannis. So, like, you know, if Giannis is healthy, it's still.
I'm sorry. I'm going out on a limb here. I don't take them seriously. I don't.
Wow. Even with Giannis there?
I don't care. You've got Damian Lillard, who you obviously devoted plenty of assets to. And
he can't move.
He's falling off. And that was the one guy everyone was saying for at least a year that the Knicks really needed to trade for, and that it was Donovan Mitchell, and then of course.
No, thank God. Let's be honest. Thank God the Knicks didn't trade.
Thank God it was neither of them.
Guys.
Either
Mitchell would not have fit.
Decision.
Lillard would not have fit. Where do you stand on Philly? Because I think they're really top heavy, but I think they lack balls. And until I see them win, specifically Embiid and George, I don't trust them.
The fact that you have one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best centers, you know, statistically and just from a skill point standpoint, the fact that you haven't even advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals is one of the most pathetic things that I've ever seen in basketball. And you've got to get past the second round to even be considered a part of this. I think Paul George, that contract in 2 years is going to be one of the worst contracts in NBA history. He still has that it factor where he can impact the game on both ends of the ball, but you give it a year. He's going to become a little bit more run down. The second he loses that slight burst that he has defensively, you saw it with Klay Thompson. I know that was because of injuries, but you saw it with Klay Thompson in terms of age. And when these guys get older, they lose the ability to be lockdown defenders. And I think you're going to need Paul George to be that lockdown defender because realistically, who else do you have that's locked down on that team? You're not like the Knicks with the two wings with Anunoby and Bridges. You've got the advantage in terms of the size with Joel Embiid, and then the matchup between the Knicks and the Sixers. I'd go as far to say the matchup with the Knicks and the Celtics is more enticing than the Knicks versus Sixers, but the Knicks are the team in the East that match up best against all the teams in the East because of their interchangeability, their versatility, especially on the defensive end, JJ.
And that's the hope, and that's the idea. Bryce, listen,
What a life.
I think they deserve to be the second favorite in the East. That's how I put them right now. I put them behind Boston. Boston, listen, they're in the conference finals every year. They've been in the NBA finals 3 of the last 4 years. But sign me up, man. Want to see that series at some point.
Man, what a life. What a life we live. Of course, not talking about the Yankees, talking about the Knicks here. JJ, it's always a pleasure, man. I really appreciate it, as always. You can check him out on the Ringers New York podcast on Spotify and SNY and all the other good stuff that he does. I saw you wrote the Bruce Beck camp. How did that go?
Always fun with the kids. Yeah, always. They were they cracked me up, dude. They cracked me up.
You're a role model.
Bright. Did you go to that camp as a kid?
My dad always asks, like, do you want to go? I'm like,
no, not for you. All right, fair enough.
I don't know. It wasn't my cup.
I didn't even know a broadcasting camp existed when I was a kid. So, there's that.
No, it wasn't my cup of tea. All right, JJ, thank you very much, as always.
You got it, dude. Anytime.
All right. See ya.